Hello and welcome. We're in the official launch of Embodied Shakti Leadership Facilitator Training. My name is Annabelle Hart. I am a 3 times international bestselling author, medicine woman, and teacher. And today I'm here sharing with you a little about me. So if you don't already know me, this might be a good opportunity to tune in and get a feel for who I am and some different experiences that I've had in life and how that's shaped me as I am today. And if you do know me already, you might also want to tune in. Maybe you learn something new. We'll see what comes through. So I'll begin by sharing that I grew up on our family farm in rural South-East Queensland, Australia. And I have certainly had an interesting life in quite a short window of time. So I'm very curious what's yet to come. And if you don't already know me or some of my story, then perhaps brace yourself. I'm about to dive in and just kind of go straight to it. So early on in life, I experienced varying initiations, as I refer to them, with sexual abuse from different individuals and circumstances. And for anyone who experiences trauma of any nature and at any age, it's not often a safe experience for us. And certainly as a child, we don't always have the means to be able to protect ourselves in those instances. So the safest option that we can offer ourselves is actually to dissociate our spirit from our physical body and leave the body there to experience the ordeal. And when it's somewhat safe, we can return again to the physical body. But as we come back into our body, the spirit into the physical vessel, it's no longer feeling like a haven and home for us to reside in. And suddenly there's all these sensations here for us, which are, quite confronting. And especially for a child, we don't often have the ability to comprehend at that intellectual level what is actually here for us. And so this is where experiences like anxiety and depression and self-abuse through addictive behavior can start to become really patterned and programmed into our being and body. And this is certainly my experience. Some of my earliest memories are actually of trying to completely disconnect from this life before it had even really begun. And so depression and suicide has been a key theme for me throughout my life and certainly highlighted at various stages. Anxiety, especially social anxiety, has been a really key theme for me as well. And self-abusive, addictive behavior through various means has also been very prominent as well. So essentially, due to these experiences early on in life around sexual abuse, dissociation, anxiety, depression, and addictive behavior have been very key, prominent themes for me to work with in myself. And most of my life has honestly been in a state of self-destruction. I was never really one to set goals or envision what I actually desired or dreamed of experiencing in life because I was way too busy entangled in how I can destroy my own life and consequently hurt a lot of other people around me as well. So it's a very interesting place to have gone from that state into where I am now, which is very much about setting goals and envisioning what it is that I'm here to create, not just for myself, but for all, what can really be of benefit for not just humans, but also like the plant and animal kingdoms and Mother Earth herself. So yeah, I was reflecting on this just recently that like, wow, what a transformation of how far I've come, of that absolute destruction energy to absolute creative fire of not just for my own benefit, but for all. And it's a really beautiful thing. And So essentially what it is that I work with in myself personally, and what I offer those through professional creative endeavors as well, like Embodied Shakti Leadership Facilitator training, is guidance around how to transform traumas into treasures. Because the truth is, there is, believe it or not, hidden gems to be found even among those wounds that we carry. There is great wisdom for us to receive. And this has certainly been my experience in life, and something that I feel very blessed to be able to now gift on for other women, and for them to share that with their families, their friends, their communities, their clients, and so forth. We create this ripple effect. You might have heard me speak to this already. So obviously, given my own experiences in life around, in particular, sexual abuse, anxiety, dissociation, depression, addictions, all of those, I feel very confident in being able to work within myself. And of course, the past 10 years of my education, in particular through Australia, England, and Denmark, through various certified trainings, working with various medicines and modalities with experts in their field, has really helped me to have the foundation to be able to support others who also have similar experiences. And, you know, if you are someone who's experiencing things like dissociation, anxiety, depression, addictive behavior, and that could be of any kind. Mine was very prominent through substance abuse, but it can also come through in relation to how we relate with technology, as an example. Shopping can be an addictive behavior, emotionally overeating. There's so many different forms that these experiences can come in for us. And this is my own personal story, which might be a little bit different to yours, and yet we might have very similar key themes that are very relatable for one another. And that's what I help people to do. Is I kind of relate it to being like a wolf. I really love the wolf spirit. It's strong for me. And I see myself much like a wolf, because I track the triggers. So in this case, things like anxiety, depression, dissociation, addictions, all of that is kind of a trigger reaction that's coming through us. And so I help people to track it like a scent, tracking a scent to the source, so that we can discover where that's really coming from within us and what it's actually here trying to highlight for us. And it's in this tracking to the source that we can start to receive the teachings and the wisdom, the treasures, transforming from these traumas. And trauma can come in so many varied forms. Yes, it can be some of the most inhumane behavior that's possible for us to experience. It can also be really minute, seemingly insignificant experiences that are actually like very monumental, especially from a child perspective. So that's what I help to support my clients with. Is I have this methodology, which I'll speak to more so another day, but it's liberate. So it's liberating the stories that are being stored within our bodies. And through that liberation, we can then start to validate what's here for us. And in validating, allowing that acceptance, we can actually start to receive regulation for our nervous system, especially. So liberate, validate, and regulate. That's part of my methodology that I offer my clients. And, you know, the regulate piece, especially in relation to the nervous system, is such a key ingredient, because what I'm witnessing in a lot of, shall we label it as like self-help communities or modalities, is that so many people are trying to regulate the nervous system, forgetting a really key ingredient that right now, regulating the nervous system, it's very likely wired to the stress reaction and response based from trauma. which often is related to somewhere early on in our childhood. And so what I'm exploring with my clients is actually the liberation. You need to liberate this out of your body, validate what's here for you, and then regulate. Because when we come to that regulation piece, we're able to rewire and rewrite the nervous system and how it's been programmed and patterned, so that we can regulate it into a state of equilibrium rather than regulating to a state of that hyperreactive stress response that's based from the original trauma. Let me know if you need any clarification on that. It's something I'm happy to speak to more. So it's just something that I've been exploring over the past 10 years of my own education and showing up for people in varied medicines and modalities that I've shared over the years. And now Embodied Shakti leadership facilitator training is really a culmination of all of that coming together and birthing through me for the benefit of all. And it's through this that I'm really seeing a very different result for my clientele, where regulating our nervous system to a state of equilibrium is so much more beneficial for us than regulating to what's already been wired as actually a really stress reactive kind of state. So that's something I'm excited to explore more and more through this training as well. The other key themes that I'll highlight here, again, this can come through trauma of any kind. And as I've highlighted with you before, if you haven't tuned in, a part of what I do is really based in multi-generational and multi-dimensional healing and evolution. So it's not just working with you here and now as you are, though that is a very key piece of the puzzle. But again, like this wolf spirit, we're actually tracking the patterns and programs that have been imprinted through your family lineage on both your mother and your father's side. And we're also tracking this in through the collective field as well, the guiding grids of what's been held in our collective field, our collective consciousness. And again, this rewiring, rewriting of these patterns and programs allows for personal, ancestral, and collective healing and evolution to come through, which is, I believe, so much more profound than just trying to work with a physical symptom. I believe that whilst there's absolutely a place for Western medicine, much of the approaches are based in a kind of band-aid solution, in the sense that it's looking just at the symptom, whereas I love diving deep. The mermaid spirit really comes through for me in that, you know, I'm willing and wanting to dive to the depths of the oceans to discover the source of the wound or the trauma that's, you know, on a surface level, the wound or the trauma, diving deep into the source of it so that we can discover the hidden gems that are here for you. And I believe there's so much more power and potency in that, because again, we're not just addressing the symptom, we're actually going to the source, into the roots, into the core of what's really here for you. And it's through that that we're able to rewire at a much more expansive scale. So working with the physical, emotional, psychological, and energetic bodies, as opposed to just one or the other. It's very much interwoven. And also recognizing the personal, ancestral, collective patterning and programming, and rewiring and rewriting all of that, so that that's where this like multi-generational as well as multi-dimensional healing and evolution can come to its full fruition. And so when we experience trauma of any kind, this could be psychic attacks, this could be psychological abuse, like verbal abuse. It could be, you know, just being constantly not met in emotional intimacy or connection. It could be when we're not validated for our emotions. And it can also be in relation to physical abuse. In my experience and education, any nature of trauma, again, whether it be severe or like seemingly insignificant, to me, they're on the same scale, because to me, what I've seen personally, but also professionally through my clientele that I've worked with for, 10 years now, it all leads to the same kind of symptoms, reactions, triggers that play out repetitively. And some of these also include low sense of self-worth, low sense of self-esteem, low sense of self-respect, and not valuing oneself. And these are really very prominent themes, and especially, honestly, I see it in children, women, and men. Like, it's so extensive how much that's showing up in our society at the moment. But given that this Embodied Shakti leadership facilitator training is for women, I'll just hone in on our sisters for a moment and highlight, like, this is so strong. Can you relate with these themes as well? Because they've certainly been here for me, where you just might be lacking confidence. You don't feel like you're enough. You don't feel like you're worthy. You don't feel valuable at all. You don't feel like you're lovable. Like, all of these themes have been so prominent throughout my life, and they go hand in hand, of course, with the dissociation, with the depression, the anxiety, the addictions. It's all interwoven. It's kind of like, yeah, I have this image of, imagine like a ball of yarn, maybe even several. There's lots of different colors, and they've all become like entangled and enmeshed, and it's just like a fucking mess. And what I help people to do, if you are familiar with the chakra system, the energetic portals of our body that relate to certain colors and different frequencies, imagining that these different colors of yarn that are entangled with one another are the chakra system. And that's kind of what we are in when, we've experienced trauma and we haven't yet perhaps had the healing to evolve through those experiences and to really integrate them so that we can implement a different experience for ourselves moving forward. So basically, what I help my clientele to do is to unravel these entangled threads and to fine-tune the frequency of each of their chakras so that they can be in this regulated state, especially in their nervous system, but through every layer of their being and body, into a state of equilibrium. So that's kind of the image that comes through for me, is like, sometimes it can feel like such a shit show and a bit of a mess. And it's a patience practice to unravel all of those threads. And sometimes we might tug on one thinking this is it, and then it like locks in even stronger. And so I'm helping clients to be able to gently and nourishingly unravel that or those threads within themselves, and to fine-tune their chakra system again. So just coming back for a moment to that sense of like low self-worth, low self-respect. This is also where we can allow ourselves to be used and abused. So, as an example, having unintegrated trauma from early on in life around sexual abuse led me to later on in life, certainly through my teenage years, and honestly, even into my early 20s, not respecting my body. And so I was giving myself to these men in these sexual experiences and relations that were so unwholesome for me. Like, it wasn't, some were also very unsafe situations where I was drugged and raped. Other experiences were just me choosing to give my body, my temple, my yoni to someone who absolutely was not respecting that. And of course, that's just a reflection of self. I wasn't respecting self. So there's medicine there for me, but it's been beautiful to rewire all of that so that it's not something that's here in my field anymore. And this is what I'm really excited to support other women with. This is what I support my teenage clients with as well, so that they can learn how to establish boundaries. Often we are not taught boundaries as children. And many of us often have our boundaries crossed, again, in severe or seemingly insignificant ways. Either way, the result is still the same, that we are not affirmed within our boundaries. So, especially with young women, I really love being able to empower, like help them be empowered in themselves to affirm their boundaries in seemingly small, insignificant ways to the most essential, so that whatever facet of life where they're needing to protect and preserve their body, their being, they're able to hold that field for themselves. You know, it's such an empowering state for women, again, all humans, to be able to relate with ourselves in this way. So that's something I'm also really passionate about through the work that I do personally and professionally. But just coming back again, I'm lots of different tangents or threads to follow here. This key theme around like the low sense of self-worth. Now, this can also relate to scarcity stories. So where we feel like there's never enough, basically. And again, this can be related to our personal experiences in life. This can be very much related or passed down generation to generation through our family lineages. This is often the fear imprint through the collective consciousness as well, that we are collectively rewiring and rewriting at the moment. And so a huge theme that I've worked with in myself and that I offer for my clients is taking this leap of faith from poverty to prosperity consciousness. Now, when I use the words poverty and prosperity, I mean this in such a vast way. It is not just in relation to money. However, I do specifically highlight the theme of money because so many of the soulful, heartful, creative ones who I'm connected with, whether they be personal friends or clientele, I have found that so many of us are incredibly dissociated and disconnected to this physical reality. So many of us are so busy trying to escape this matrix society that we reject money big time. And the thing is about this, I feel like this is not a very integrative embodiment of, you know, there's a lot of hype at the moment about light workers and, you know, all of this, which I'm all for. Don't get me wrong. A huge piece of what I do is absolutely about being a light worker and activating that within other people as well, or better yet, supporting them to activate it in themselves, because I'm not doing it for you. You are doing it within yourself. We're just here inspiring each other through our existence. And how we show up and how we be and share ourselves in this world. But a huge piece of what I do too is very much based in shadow work. That's actually my passion. I really love the shadow work. As daunting as it can be to dive into that within ourselves, or to call other people on their shit, their shadow, their stories, I actually feel like this is where humans need to be maybe held accountable more so, and take more responsibility for that part of ourselves, because it can be easy to turn a blind eye and just believe that we're this beautiful earth angel, because we are, of course, but let's not be afraid to integrate the darker or deeper aspects of ourselves, because there's so much valuable medicine there too. And again, this is what I love working with in people, is like helping them to integrate the whole of them rather than just one facet or the other, and to integrate the light and the dark, or the gifts and the shadow of each. Because there's, yeah, it's a very, it may sound complex, it's really quite simple. So just, yeah. But what I've been seeing in more spiritual based communities who are, you know, the absolute soulful, heartful, creative ones who are here to completely alchemize the way that society is relating within themselves and with the world around them. And I'm all for that. And it's a huge part of what I'm here for too. But what I'm really tired of seeing is how many of us, myself included, this was me for about 10 years at least, maybe more like 20 years on my own journey of just not having my roots anchored in the ground. I was way too busy dissociating and disconnecting from my life, from my being, from my body, from the earth, the elements within and around me, especially as a woman, and way too busy rejecting this reality and way too busy escaping the matrix society, and also with that rejecting money and not valuing it. And with that, I just don't believe that is the most fruitful way for us to create this change within ourselves or for the world around us either. And so, hugely, what I'm calling us into now, whether you feel more connected to the soulful, heartful, creative type or otherwise, is calling us to anchor into our roots, to grow from that nourishment, that source of wisdom of the earth, and to be this, it's a channel in between the heaven and the earth, weaving the celestial and the earthly realms as one, the seen world with the unseen, the above world with the below world. This is what I do. It's bridging the gap, basically. And with this, I am very passionate about, imagining what a different world we would be living in if it was the soulful, the heartful, the creative ones that actually had access to the most amount of abundance, prosperity, and wealth. And again, I mean that in all its forms, but I also mean it in relation to money, because more often than not, we're the ones dissociating and disconnecting from money. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of beauty absolutely in being able to feel wealthy, even when others may perceive us as in a poverty state. And as an example, like, I grew up in a family that's I would say very comfortable to a certain degree, perhaps compared to other people and their perception of our family. They would label us as comfortable or even wealthy. I definitely grew up in quite a materialistic society. I did go to boarding schools from like the age of 10, so 7 years of boarding schools. And simultaneously, I've also been the kid to move to the other side of the world when I was 17 and just travel on my own. I've been the kid to backpack around Nepal and India. I've been the kid to wander bare feet for months in India because I had my shoes stolen and I chose not to be able to afford. So there's that scarcity story of like, I can't afford new shoes. And consequently, I became very unwell. Not just in relation to bare feet. I'm actually all for bare feet, but in India, the hygiene is just very different to what I've grown up with in Australia. And so there's different bacterias that, locals can really withstand that maybe not so good for my body. And, in Denmark, for instance, I had a period where I was absolutely homeless. I didn't have anywhere to go. Fortunately, I was so wealthy in a network of people willing to support me that I was absolutely housed during that time. I had a roof over my head. I had a bed to sleep in. I actually had food, whether it be foraging from the permaculture gardens that we were creating, or foraging through just the earth's abundance and all the fruits and vegetables that she was providing for us, especially in the summer season. And I also would line up at the equivalent of like a soup kitchen. So at the end of the day, when they're giving away food, free food, you can line up and see what you can receive. Like that was my life for a long while. So I absolutely know what it's like to be on both ends of the spectrum, to be very much provided for in a financial means, and then also to feel like to experience a different sense of what it feels like to be wealthy in different avenues of life, like wealthy network and support, wealthy abundance of food and fruits and vegetables from Gaia. You know, there's lots of different ways that prosperity comes into our life, but I believe that now more than ever, humans collectively, we're being called to take a leap of faith out of these scarcity stories, out of the burdens and the binds of fear, and into faith, into prosperity consciousness in all its forms that are of service to us all. And with that sustainability too, being considerate of Gaia, of Mother Earth, of the plant and animal kingdoms. It's not just humans living here, you know, and that's something I'm hugely passionate about as well. So that was a lot, wasn't it? I feel like we covered most of the bases though. And I'm aware this is already at 30 minutes, so I'm going to try and wrap it up here. No doubt there will be more that needs to come through, but I trust that much of what I've shared with you has maybe been triggering to hear, has maybe sparked or activated, ignited something, stimulated within you in some way or another. And perhaps there's also aspects of what I've spoken to that are very much relatable for you or that you resonate with. And if so, I'd love to connect on a call and just have a chat, like get to know each other. And you've heard a lot about me. I'd love to hear about you and where you're at on your journey, and what's true for you here and now, and see if we're a fit to work together through Embodied Shakti Leadership Facilitator training, and flow from there. So with that, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bountiful blessings to each of you.